I'm Caleb Harris with You Can Make This Too. Thank you for joining me. Today I'm going to be talking about paint sprayers. Now, I'm not a spraying expert, and this isn't like a full scientific comparison or review. I'm a beginner talking to beginners about some beginner spray guns. So like most people, I really loathe painting and painting projects. Brushing and even rolling, it just takes so long, and even if you roll, you still have to brush. So late last year, I bought this TackLife because it was pretty inexpensive on Amazon. Gave it a try. I was like, okay, that's a little bit better. And then when I was at Workbench Con in February, HomeRight people were there with their sprayers and talked to them some. They're like, hey, you want to try ours? I said, well, sure. I hate painting. You have a sprayer. Let's give it a shot. And so I'm just kind of doing a comparison. Now this sprayer from HomeRight is very price comparable to the TackLife, so they're more even keeled. But HomeRight also sent me their Finish Max Super, which is the step up from the Finish Max. I'm really not going to compare it with these two just because it's a slightly different caliber, but I have it and it is really only a few bucks more. So I'll kind of talk about it and why it's a little bit different. TackLife has an upgrade kit for this as well as another sprayer that I think is more comparable to the Finish Max Super, but I don't have it, so can't really compare, but I will just mention that. I think the first step is just going to be showing you the features on these different guns and then taking apart a few of the components and showing some component differences, and then we'll do some spraying. Or at least that was the plan, but I'll still tell you about these machines. I think we'll start with adjustments. So they both have triggers that adjust the same way, and all this really is just a positive stop. But as far as adjustment, they both work the same way with just this thumb screw. Spray pattern, you just kind of turn the tip on the HomeRight. The TackLife works the same way, it just has a ring you turn to adjust it. But the TackLife does have another adjustment up here that, I don't know if you can see this, it's a wide and then a narrow fan that makes it a little more concentrated. So we'll check out how well that works. That's something the HomeRight doesn't have. The other little thing the TackLife advertises is this, you don't have to take the bucket off to feel it, but honestly, there's really not much room there. I've tried to use this and it's a little gimmicky. I end up just making a bigger mess. I prefer to just pull off the pail because then you have, a much wider mouth to pull into than that little hole with all this stuff in the way, especially if you're pulling out of a gallon-sized bucket. So this is where I think we might really notice the performance difference though, is the TackLife just has this plastic needle and hole that atomizes the paint. Whereas when you look at the TackLife, kind of their little end nozzle thing here is pretty similar, but the needle and whatnot on this is all brass that atomizes. So I don't know if that's going to make a difference. We'll find out. One other quick little difference is going to be capacity. This one holds 800 milliliters to the top line. The TackLife holds 900 milliliters to the top line. So you'll have to fill this one a little bit more often, and this one will be heavier. All right, so here's the paint I'm going to be spraying. Just some paint I had left over from a previous project. I've got some blue and some yellow. They're both the same brand and blah, blah, blah. The blue is going to go in the HomeRight because they're blue, and the yellow is going to go in the TackLife because that's what I have. Now, I did thin both of these to the same viscosity. I used this little viscosity cup that came with the HomeRight kit, and according to that manual, the run-out time for enamel paint should be between 25 and 40 seconds, and both of these, when I dip it, all the paint runs out in about 30 seconds in both of them, so they're about the same viscosity. All right, so the machines have paint in them, ready to go outside and do some painting. I bought some stuff to spray paint, made a few little jigs to paint, so that way I can show faces, inside corners, outside corners, and some little birdhouses to really show detail. It's right on the operating temperature of the paint because it's 90 degrees outside and pretty humid. So it's not comfortable, but I'm really ready to get this video done. But the orange sprayer doesn't spray. I finagle it, I get a few little sputters, and it's like, okay, well maybe the last time I used it, I just didn't clean it very well. Take it all apart, clean it, try it, still doesn't spray. Take it apart, clean it again, still doesn't spray. Function check everything, it's taking in air, it's blowing air, it's pulling a vacuum from the hose, it's putting air pressure into the tank like it's supposed to. Paint is coming up and going to the needle. For whatever reason, it's just not leaving the gun. So I move on, grab the blue sprayer, check it, maybe something's wrong with the paint. It sprays great. Better than I thought it would, even with as thin as I had to get it. Granted, I got it as thin as it was supposed to be, but actually thinned the paint down more than the paint manufacturer directions recommend, but it sprayed really well. I only put one coat on the items, but I'll show them to you because for one coat it's actually pretty good coverage considering how much it was thinned out, and did well in my opinion. I think they did well. Then I go back to the orange sprayer, try spraying some again, and this time I'm actually able to get it to keep blowing, but it's barely blowing any paint. It's like, okay, maybe the viscosity's wrong. So do some looking up. Apparently the viscosity is supposed to be a little higher for that sprayer, so I get some different paint out, thin it down to the appropriate viscosity, and I'm pretty hopeful after I put that paint in the sprayer because, you know, I'm able to get the yellow paint to come out. So I think, oh hey, now they got the right viscosity, this is probably gonna work. And also just in investigating everything, what I thought was happening is the air that the sprayer pulls into the gun blows over the motor. So after you spray for about 5 seconds, it blows pretty hot air because the motor heats up, that's where the air is coming from. And you consider how thin the paint was and that I was able to pull dried paint right off the cover like every time I sprayed it. I was thinking, okay, maybe what's happening is it's just blowing past the paint, pushing the paint to the outside walls of the nozzle, and then the superheated air is just drying it really fast because it's fairly thin. And I did find a lot of dried paint inside of it. So maybe that's what it is. So hopefully this thicker paint won't dry so quick and it'll do better. Get it all loaded and it doesn't spray at all. I couldn't get the second paint to spray at all. So I go through everything again. I break it apart, I clean it, check the paint, try it again, still doesn't do it. Clean it again, still doesn't spray. So I don't know what the deal is. The sprayer did work for me. After I bought it, I used it once. Admittedly, that's also why there is white specks of paint all over my shop, because the thing puts off a ridiculous amount of overspray. So anyway, I think the one I have is probably a fluke, but I put too much time in this video to not put it out. So this video is less about, now my phone's going off because I didn't put it on silent. It's just one of those days. So this video is now less about a comparison of paint sprayers and just dealing with failure and crappy days. Sometimes things don't go the way you want. Just stick with them. So I'm trying to salvage this by just telling you the story. Hopefully you find it entertaining. I know normally I just show things working pretty well. I like to throw in my mistakes only when they're valuable teaching points. I don't know if there's really anything valuable here other than just to know that sometimes things just don't go right for everyone. And that's just life. So anyway, thanks for sticking along. Not much of a story. Hopefully you found it a little entertaining. And TackLife, if you want me to finish this, I'd be more than happy to give you a fair comparison. I'm sure I just ended up with a fluke gun somehow. So if you want to send me one, I will by all means finish this, recut it, and put it together in a proper comparison. My objective with this video from the beginning was never to declare a winner or say one's better than the other. I just wanted to lay out expectations from someone who doesn't have much experience, so that way other people who don't have much experience can, you know, compare these things and see if the features are worth it, see what the results are, and just kind of decide for themselves. I don't know what really advice to leave you with now, except for maybe take my experience and decide for yourself.